It's time for Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? It is another edition of Bringing the Heat with Bryan Nolen. Yours truly on the week of October the 14th, 2024. On this edition of the program, my man Steven Stumpf, our content director in the NASCAR side of things, is going to join the program. You're going to talk everything Roval, preview Las Vegas, and so much more. But first, in his swan song year, the swan song race for Doug Rice happens this Sunday in Las Vegas. The decorated, legendary broadcaster from PRN is going to be hanging it up after this year, and the final race for PRN in their airwaves is going to be this Sunday at Las Vegas. Big shout out to my boy Trey Lyle for hosting the interview. He talked about a plethora of different things, so highly recommend this interview. So let's just dive on in right now to the leader, the Performance Racing Network's Mr. Doug Rice.
Now it's time for...
Joining us up here in the broadcast booth, a longtime friend of ours and an even longer friend of you, race fans and race listeners of the Performance Racing Network, the lead anchor, Doug Rice. After 36 years of broadcasting, he's determined that this will be his last year, and a bucket list, and Doug will let you tell the story, but a bucket list was for you to be here and to call the Great American Race.
To go into the Inferno with Bryan.
Bringing back into the Inferno for the second time this season is president, lead anchor for the Performance Racing Network, Doug Rice. Doug, thanks so much for joining us again this week. And first want to ask, we're heading to Las Vegas this upcoming weekend, your final race in the booth. Has it sort of sunk in that this is going to be your last race?
It's starting to sink in. It hit me at the conclusion of the Roval at Charlotte because that was my last Charlotte broadcast, and that's sort of been the nexus of my entire career. You're like, wow, I won't be here in May when the 600 ends. And so, yeah, it's starting to sink in. It probably won't really knock me down until we're done out in Las Vegas. I think the post-race show could be a little emotional.
I mean, three decades in the broadcast booth. I think you've seen it all in your time. As you've gone from track to track, has like certain memories popped up as you've gone through this process?
Yeah, I think it has. And some of those memories are just incidental things, interactions with other people in the media or race fans or folks at that speedway. And some of the memories are based about the races that we called and we saw how they ended. The dirt track race at Bristol that Kyle Busch won that he had no business winning sticks out in my head. The first race at Coda, which was just so big, and, watching people win for the first time. Daniel Suarez getting his first victory, Ross Chastain winning, and some lots of other people. I've been blessed to call a lot of first time winners, and you always remember that because that just jumps right to the top of the page.
Talk about like your start in broadcasting. I read an article, and being a baseball fan like I am, and I can see the Atlanta Braves behind you. You said like the Atlanta Braves and the radio broadcasting really set you on this path. Like, talk about what it was like, listening to those Braves games that really set you on to become a prominent radio play-by-play announcer.
Trey, this will sound really nerdy, but I don't care. When I was a teenager, I was a big Braves fan, but they weren't on. There was no TBS Superstation. There was the radio, or you got the paper the next day to see how they did. So I would listen to the Braves on the radio religiously. And as they did the starting lineups, I would lay out my Topps baseball cards on my bed as they introduced the starting lineups for both teams. I had all the National League team baseball cards, so I could at least, know what Biff Pocoroba looked like or whoever it was. And I would listen to these guys, and the Braves were awful. Outside of Rico Carty and Henry Aaron, it was a bunch of no names, never going anywhere people. But the guys that call the races, Ernie Johnson and Milo Hamilton, were just wonderful storytellers, and they made you care about this team. And they would talk about the things that were going on at whatever city they were in that I would never imagine visiting these places. They might as well have been on the moon. I was never going to go to San Francisco. I was never going to travel to Chicago in my mind or any of the places they played, but I could listen to them do these games on the radio, and it put me in that town. And I thought, what a wonderful job that must be just to tell stories.
So I'm reading your stats here, and something interesting. We can go big picture with PRN. You've basically overseen its growth from having 2 cup events in 1988 to now having 14. What has it been like for you and the personal satisfaction that you've had in terms of, sort of guiding the growth of PRN becoming, very synonymous with NASCAR? It's PRN, MRN, that's it.
Well, it was slow go because for the first 3 years that we were there, maybe a little bit longer, we just did the 2 Charlotte races, and that was it. And after the first time I went to Daytona for Speed Weeks, I thought we can do something else to make us more legitimate. And that's when we started Fast Talk with Benny Parsons, because Benny was a big celeb. He lived 5 miles from Charlotte Motor Speedway where we did the shows. And we would literally set up in a conference room and do that show. But that gave us a little traction. And then Bruton started buying more tracks. And I remember a woman that used to work with me, Alicia Lingerfeld, and she said, we have to go and do these other races. And I said, oh, we're going to. And so we eventually got the contracts away from Motor Racing Network. That's not a hostile takeover, but our company owned those tracks. And I think the first race we did away from Charlotte Motor Speedway was at Atlanta, and it's a race that Steve Grissom crashed in. And I mean, it was a horrendous crash. We all thought he's not going to make it out of this. But we stayed on the air during the long red flag, and we got an interview with Steve. And we all felt like, even after that, we said, we've kind of arrived. We've done something above what we did before. And then the more of them you do, the better you get at it. And the more polished you can get, and the more camaraderie you have. And then we went to Texas when Bruton built that place, and then Sonoma, and then it was just an avalanche of tracks that Bruton was buying. I would love to take the credit, but, Bruton had a big boat going down the lake, and we were just kind of water skiing behind him.
Well, you talk about Fast Talk and then bringing in Benny Parsons, like, even I'm 27, but I know, I never saw really Benny Parsons, the race car driver. I saw Benny Parsons, the media personality, the guy in the booth, especially, with his time at TNT, NBC, ESPN. Talk about working with him throughout the years and how, it's kind of like him and DW are like the 2 most prominent broadcast analysts, at least in my memory.
He was just a wonderful person, and he understood the racing game. He wasn't the most eloquent broadcaster, but if he said it, you trusted what he said. He had a lot of ethos to what he was saying, and I always remember that. And he was always a good friend. I could call Benny and talk about anything, and we would do a show, and he would go, well, how was that? And the first couple of years we did Fast Talk, Benny was the only person on the air talking to guests or taking calls. Taking calls is rough, by the way. You know that. You work at a news network. And then eventually he said, he said, I think we can do this better. And he actually asked me, he says, how about you handling the intros and outros? Hey, we're coming out of break, and I would set it up. And I would say, we're going to talk to Darrell Waltrip next, and then set Benny up and took the housekeeping part of the broadcast away from him. And then it became more of a duet, but Benny was always the leader. He was just a wonderful guy, and he knew everything about racing. He was a past champion. He was humble. The only thing that Benny ever did that was kind of strange, if you went up into the garage area while he was down there researching for his TV appearances or whatever, he didn't do autographs because he said, this is my office. If you want to see me outside at the hospitality, I'll sign autographs, but not in here. And I can't fully blame him, because if he had done that, that's all he would have gotten done while he was in the garage.
These quote unquote retirement tours, you call it Doug's last lap. You've seen it in sports where, famous athletes, famous broadcasters get, I think of Vin Scully as a famous broadcast, like their final tour. Was there any unique retirement gifts that you've been given on this journey so far?
A bunch. And it's been overwhelming, Trey. I will be honest. The first gift I got wasn't anything tangible, but it was the people at the Motor Racing Network saying, hey, why don't you come over and do a few laps of the Daytona 500? So I got to do that and work with Alex Hayden and Jeff Striegel and their whole team, and called maybe 15 minutes worth of this year's Daytona 500, which is a bucket list thing. And I really don't like that term. But if you're in this business, you want to do the Daytona 500. I'd done the 600. I'd done the Indy 500. I'd never broadcast on the radio a race at Daytona. So they paid that off tremendously. I went to Atlanta. They gave me a couple of nice things. I did the command. I did the driver start your engines, which was unbelievable. I didn't know how that would go, because that's a lot of pressure. You don't want to fumble that. And I got a custom-made Gibson guitar from Les Paul Gibson guitar from Nashville Super Speedway. The folks at Dover gave me a Miles the Monster trophy replica, which is just really neat. Indy gave me a wonderful gift. I got one of the original bricks from the Brickyard. I mean, that's pretty cool. And Bristol gave me one of the swords like they give the winning drivers with a nice inscription on the inside. I'm going to leave somebody out here. Texas put me in their Texas Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. I'm in the Wall of Fame out at Sonoma. All of this is way above me. And then this past week, Charlotte Motor Speedway gave me the Bruton Smith Award, which is the trophy that they hand out at the Coca-Cola 600. It's founded. It's a molded trophy. It weighs about 45 pounds, made out of solid brass, and things like that. And one of the other kind of the beaten path things that I got was the Atlanta Falcons. There were people over there that knew I'm a big Falcons fan, and they've had rough years. But at Atlanta, for the last race of the season, they gave me a customized jersey with my name on it and a framed picture of the Atlanta Falcons race car that they had done up. So, to get those kind of things that are just special, yeah, it's been overwhelming. I can't believe that all of this has come about because I decided to hang up the microphone after 36 years.
How it feels like, anytime you do these kind of moments, it's a lot of self-reflection on, your timeline of, what you've done and where you've been. What would you say is like the moment where you figured like, oh, I'm pretty good at this. Like, I think I can make this a career.
I don't know that I ever had that, because I've always, working for PRN, we were always the underdog. We never had as many races as MRN. There's no animosity about that. That's just the way it was. So we always kept trying to be better and measure ourselves against them, because they were the platinum standard. In the last few years, I felt like we got to that level. But I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, I finally got comfortable thinking, okay, I'm okay at this. I don't know that I'm the best broadcaster that ever lived. Far from it. But I got comfortable in telling stories, and the race fans were accepting. And so, eventually at some point you say, okay, we belong here. When we first started, we were just a gnat on the screen. And then a little bit later on, we were more like a praying mantis, I guess. I don't know. But that all evolved. But there was never that one day I woke up and said, well, I've arrived.
Looking, towards next season, obviously, you're going to have Vegas. It's going to wrap it up. When the Cup Series heads to Atlanta next year, which will be PRN's first race, right, is it going to be weird to stay at home and probably have it on
Absolutely. And I've even thought ahead far enough, Trey, to think, am I going to be listening to my team without me there? Or am I just going to watch? Yes, I will. I'll have the radio on and I'll have the TV muted because I'm going to want to hear how they do, because I want them to be successful. And the people that are going to transition into this job, and there'll be an announcement about that later on, are more than capable of doing. But I also know that people like familiarity. They like their old blue jeans. So it may take a little while for that, but the folks that are coming along next will do great. But yes, it's going to be weird. It's going to be weird not to go to Daytona for Media Day, which I've done for the last 25 years, and sit there and interview all the drivers. That's going to be strange to be sitting at home when I know other people are going to be there, but that's the progression of life. I mean, that's okay. I'm okay with that. But yes, it'll be weird.
What's the so last two questions for you, Doug? This whole retirement tour, and you kind of touched on the gifts and everything. Is there one moment that you're going to remember the most from this? Is it doing that Daytona 500?
That was big. That was huge. It's the first time I've walked into a broadcast booth in 25 years that I was nervous. I mean, you do this for a living. I do a lot of public speaking, and I just do it. My wife says, she goes, "You think everybody can do this? They can't. Most people are scared to death to get up on a stage and talk or get on the radio. I thrive on it." That was really big. The best moments, though, have been race fans coming up saying, "Listen to you all my life. Me and my dad listen to you. You've been a part of my NASCAR fandom for 20, 25 years." And that just lets me know, okay, maybe I did something right. Maybe if they remember that, and that's important enough that they want to come up and say that, then that makes me feel pretty good. The Daytona deal was very emotional. Charlotte, the end of that race, realizing that was the last time I was going to broadcast it at my favorite track, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Those have been kind of heavy.
And Doug, my last question, obvious one. What's the plans for retirement? You going to find a beach somewhere and just relax? Or are you going to, probably
go to a geographic location to relax? It's going to be in the mountains.
Ooh, I agree.
I'm a mountain choice. Person. I'm from Asheville. I went to school at Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina. And God bless all of those people up there. They just got ravaged by Hurricane Helene. But they'll come back, because that's what mountain people do. They bounce back. It'll be time spent there, and we want to go out. My wife Penny and I want to go out west and spend a lot of time in the Dakotas, Montana, Utah, New Mexico, because we've never been to that part of the country. And I want to see as much of this country, because that's important to me. I don't care much about international travel, but I want to see as much of the USA as I can, spend some time with my grandson, maybe take him to his first race. He's 7. So I think next year at 8, I could get him to a race and he might kind of understand and grasp what it is. But I'll be honest, I've not spent a great deal of time thinking about what's coming next. I've been so regimented in my life for the last 36 years. My life has revolved around the NASCAR schedule and where they are and what I have to do in response to that. So after Sunday in Vegas, that's not going to be the case anymore. I'll still be doing my weekly show, Fast Talk. I'm going to stay doing that. And good Lord willing, I'll substitute on Sirius when they need somebody to come in and pinch hit.
Doug Rice, the longtime lead anchor for PRA. And I want to wish you good luck on your final broadcast at Vegas this weekend. And thanks so much for 30 plus years of providing great content for NASCAR fans.
It's been a fun ride. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That was Doug Rice, Into the Inferno.
Once again, that was a Performance Racing Network's Doug Rice, his farewell race, the final one of his legendary career this upcoming Sunday at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Technically, he's got 2 races. He's got the Xfinity race on Saturday and then the Cup race. But the main one, the final one, the Cup race at Las Vegas this Sunday to end his illustrious career. Let's dive on in now to our news and notes and bring in my co-host, Mr. Steven Stumpf.
What's still hot? It's time to upgrade you on the latest news in NASCAR.
I'm going to bring in my co-host at this time. He is the content director. Oh, what an absolute beautiful background he has. That is true and authentic outside background. Mr. Steven Stumpf at Steven_Stumpf. Steven, how are you, my friend? What's going on, buddy?
Doing good. Got back from Charlotte Monday night. Here in Texas, where it's been 90 degrees for how many days? It's high of 68, beautiful weather, enjoying the sunset. So I figured, why not do it here?
Hey, I've done interviews outside before, so you sound fine. Might as well enjoy the fresh air before winter comes, and I don't blame you one bit. What else I'm going to be enjoying? That is going to be this upcoming Saturday, because for the first time in the 15 years for frontstretch.com, everybody here at Frontstretch is beyond proud to announce that we're going to be on a race car for the first ever time. Blaine Perkins is going to have a brand new sponsor heading into Las Vegas and Homestead. Vivid EV, an electric golf cart manufacturer, become the primary backer on his number 29 RSS Racing Ford. Company has previously sponsored Frontstretch through the deal with RSS. Frontstretch's logo is going to be featured on the front, side, and rear bumpers of the car as a thank you following Vivid EV and Frontstretch's previous partnership. Steven, in my wildest dreams, I did not think we would be on a race car. Big thanks to Derek Yoder and everybody that partnered with this deal. Really cool opportunity, and it's going to be really, really awesome to see it on the track come Saturday.
Indeed. I've been here for 3 years. You've been here much longer, but even back from when I started in 2021, Frontstretch was nowhere close to what it is now. It's incredible to see how much we've grown. It's incredible to see, what we've been able to do at the track, the people we've been able to bring on, all the success we've been able to have. And so, being able to put our logos on a race car is the cherry on top of what has been, just an incredible climb towards the top.
Yeah, it's really cool. Dalton Hopkins and I will be on boots on the ground. Dalton making his return from a previous sabbatical. He will be his first race back. He's going to have the logo that he works for on a car. What a better way to return to covering the racing.
To be fair, just want to interject here. The logo that he works for, his daytime job, has been on plenty of cars. He does work for the U.S. Navy.
You know what, Trey? You always have to be the pessimist to us being an optimist. I mean, that's just not cool. Dalton, we love you, and I can't wait to see you on Friday and Saturday and Sunday covering the race. Last but not least, Mr. Steven Stumpf, Jeff Gordon. We'll talk more about Bowman being DQ'd in our soundbite of the week, but Jeff Gordon, the Hendrick Motorsports vice chairman, was on SiriusXM NASCAR Radio Channel 90 on Tuesday, and he said, and I'll read this via Dustin Long from NBC Sports, he said that this was, and I quote, on us. He said he was pretty embarrassed by it and very disappointing after what was looking like a historic day and one of the most exciting days that we've had at the racetrack, being a home race and everything, and celebrating in victory lane, and then all four advancing to the next round, and that got wiped away. First DQ, I think, since 2017. How surprised were you? I mean, we'll dive into this more in our soundbite of the week, but just very disappointing. I mean, who really should take the fall? Should it be Blake Harris? Should it be Hendrick Motorsports? Because, I mean, I really don't think this was Alex Bowman's doing.
I mean, let's curb had that been the culprit of the garbage.
Oh, it looks like we're having some trouble with Steven. Let's try this again. Steven, you got us?
Yeah, I got you. How about you?
There we go. Now we can hear you, buddy.
Okay. What I was saying is that unless Alex Bowman built the car himself, he's probably not to blame for it being weight. And I think also the fact that Hendrick did not even try appealing, which just shocked me, considering how their appeals have gone in the past. That tells me a couple things. Number one, them being underweight had nothing to do with Bowman hitting the curb Hands. Sorry, I just got a phone call from Wyatt. Okay, I'm good now. So him launching off the curb and all the pictures going around of something fell off the car. That obviously wasn't it. Something we also don't know is Brad Moran said they were at least above that 0.5%, below that 0.5% threshold. They were more than 17 pounds underweight, but they never specified how underweight they were. If they were 18 pounds underweight, definitely worth appealing. If they were 100 pounds underweight, that's pretty cut and dry. So I don't think it's too surprising. It's not the first car that's been DQ'd for being too light this year. Justin Haley at Coda was also DQ'd for the same reason, but it's shocking for it to happen in a playoff race in such a manner, and for Hendrick to basically admit that they just got busted.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Before we dive on into our soundbite of the week, actually, let's dive on into our soundbite of the week right now, and then we'll continue this conversation.
Well, Tony, what angered you at the end of the race? What did you take issue with?
What the hell do you think I was mad about? Dumb little runs us clear down to the infield. He wants to about everybody else, and he's the one that drives like a little. I'm gonna bust his ass.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you.
It's your track race.
It's time for the sound bites of the week.
Through our inspection station, that includes the OSS, which measures all the body and the mechanical measurements. We run it through the USS, which is all the underbody scanning, as well as the weights. We do full inspection on first and second. With a cutoff race, we also do a full inspection of the last in for the transfer into the round of 8. That would be owner and drivers. And while we did that tonight, all top 5 were playoff cars. As we're running them through, unfortunately, the 48 had an issue. Did not meet minimum weight, so we put the car to the side. We continue on. We let the team fuel the car. They felt they were low on fuel. Never mind that. We give them the opportunity to fuel the car, as well as purge the water system and add water. So we give them every opportunity to make minimum weight. We run them back through. Unfortunately, they were light again. They are allowed a 5% weight break, which is for usage of fluids and so on. That's about 17 pounds. We back the car back off the scales, run it back on, and then unfortunately it was the same weight. So,
and I think it was Door Bumper Clear that said it best. I mean, you get a buffer, Steven, and for an example, on pit road, you can go 5 over and still be okay, but 5.03 and you're going to get penalized. I think if this was 17 pounds overweight, that's fine, but even if it's 1 pound over that 17, you're still going to get penalized, and I think that's what happened. I mean, it's absolutely there should be no reason for this, especially for an organization like Hendrick Motorsports. Very, very disappointing, and I would assume there's a lot of butts being chewed from Rick Hendrick, Jeff Andrews, Jeff Gordon, everybody associated with this, from Blake Harris to Chad Knaus to everybody down the pipeline. It's just, this should not happen, especially in a playoff elimination race.
Agreed. And, whether it was by accident or they tried pushing the gray area too far, I would bet on the latter. It's just something that, that really has no excuse. Like, if you think about all the other times that teams have been penalized or, on appeal, like, for example, take the start of last year at Phoenix when Hendrick got the louvers on their 4 cars confiscated. They appealed and successfully appealed the points penalties away. Like, that's a little bit different because, illegal modifications and so on. There's definitely some leeway as to what's allowed, not allowed. Here, it's just like, it's very clean cut. They are overweight. You're either underweight or you're not. And as Brad Moran explained very thoroughly, they gave them all the opportunity to try and get the car to at the proper weight to reach it. So, and that's, it just sucks for the 48 team because Bowman hadn't wanted to play out. I think he had the best average finish before this, scored like the second or third most points through the first 5 races. So, yeah, quite a shocker, and eliminated arguably one of the contenders heading into this one.
Let's dive on into some final thoughts and wrap it up.
It's going to be a drag race all the way back to the start-finish line. No caution. They're side by side, right to the line. Big crash. Here they come. Checkered flag.
The checkered flag is out, and it's time for the final thoughts.
Our final thought segment is in the air. Whatever you want to rant, rave, or anything in between. Mr. Steven Stumpf, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right, I got about three things. I got about three final thoughts. So
Okay.
I will just get started. With all the things Kyle Larson does great, I think road course racing is one that really goes under the radar. The Charlotte Roval, he absolutely dominated. Almost no one had anything for him today. That was his 6th win on road courses. He has 2 each at Sonoma, Watkins Glen, and the Roval. He is now tied for the 4th most all time, only behind Chase Elliott with 7, Tony Stewart with 8, and Jeff Gordon with 9. With the way things are going, it's either going to be Elliott or Larson, but one of them is going to break Jeff Gordon's road course wins record, especially with the number we have on the schedule today. Also, just again, in Kyle Larson's just incredible stuff. This was his 6th win of the season. No one else has more than 3. He's led over 1,600 laps. No one's led more than 900. They've been pretty checkers or wreckers in terms of average finish, but in terms of just raw speed, no one has been able to catch them. As for the race itself, I'll be the first to tell you that I would prefer the oval over the Roval, especially with the next gen car just not being as good on the road courses, at this point in time. But I actually, and I was there last year's too, but I actually enjoyed the Roval race. And, my biggest concern was turn 7 and it being absolute chaos. And make no mistake, it definitely was chaos throughout the weekend, but I was impressed because it didn't just turn into shoving your car in there every single turn. It actually led to some pretty good passing opportunities. And I think it actually helped improve the race overall. So I'd still say go back to the oval, but I think the Roval actually did a pretty solid outing given the car it has. And finally, I'm just so excited for the next round. I mean, you got the top 7. I believe you got the top 7 in regular season points and Joey Logano, but Joey Logano is also a 2-time winner this season. All 7 multi winners this season made it to the round of 8. You look at the tracks: Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville. Like those are tracks that, at least if you look at the final 8 left, all of them have at least one winning opportunity. It's the battle of the heavyweights. There's really gonna be no margin of error, and it's gonna be exciting to see how it all goes down.
Steven Stumpf has all of the stats that you need to know ahead of this week's upcoming race. Here's Steven's sizzling stats.
Here is not Steven's sizzling stats. That was Steven's sizzling stats. I mean, my goodness, I don't even have to do a final thought segment, but I will. And once again, for like the 18 millionth time, we're talking about NASCAR officiating. And listen, if it was some other guy, it may have been a little different. But having Parker Kligerman take the white flag and then the caution come out and saying no, he did not take the white flag, it was so deflating. I truly felt like a balloon and someone just popped, just pop. Why did it take 30 seconds for them to throw a caution when the 42 car of Leyland Honeyman was just chilling, stuck in the tires? Was it a caution? Of course it was. But why are you waiting 30 seconds? You want to talk about officiating and how you're making news about stuff that happens off the racetrack. This is quote unquote happening time in and time again, and we're not focusing on the racing aspect. Once again, NASCAR can spew all of these different opinions on why they didn't do it and blah, 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 blah. But once again, they got egg on their face and they screwed up. Whether or not they're going to admit it, I don't know, but they screwed up. Thank you, Trey. I mean, plain and simple, they just screwed up.
Can I add some final thoughts onto my final thoughts?
I guess so.
I was just going to talk about that because the moment you said the Xfinity race, I couldn't believe it just slipped my mind like that. I guess maybe, trying to blank it out of your memory, but I'll be the first to say that in terms of people in the industry, fans, there are many people that wanted to see Parker Kligerman pull it off, but Leland Honeyman, that was 100% a caution. But of course, again, it's the judgment calls just taking something that should be really cut and dry and making confusion out of it. Like, if the caution had been thrown immediately, 15 seconds before he got to the line, there would have been, no controversy at all. But they said that they didn't have the angle, even though the TV broadcast clearly showed it. So that just seems puzzling to me. Like, if you're race control and you're trying to, look at the track, how do you not have access to what the TV broadcast is seeing when it seemed like everyone else noticed there was a car stuck in the wall except for them, assuming that this is what actually happened according to NASCAR. It's just, again, the fact that they threw it when they did, it just created, because now you're going to have people saying, oh, they shouldn't have thrown it. They should have just let it go to white. They should have thrown it much earlier. What are they doing? It doesn't look good in the sanctioning body, especially when it's not a consistent process. Think about, Richmond in March, Nashville in July, lazy spins by Larson and Cindric with 2 to go. Caution comes out immediately. Meanwhile, think to the Brickyard 400, Brian Preece is stalled at the exit of turn 2 for nearly 50 seconds. They let Larson take the white and then they throw the caution. Like, it's just these cautions, at least, Honeyman, and this is not been a caution. It was a caution. It's just, there needs to be some consistency and accountability about when these things are thrown. And if there's certain broadcast angles, camera angles that NASCAR race doesn't have access to, they need to get access to the front.
Yeah, it's just, and I second what you said about Parker. That obviously, as media members, we don't cheer for people, but there's people that are super friendly and know that we are there to do a job and make our jobs a lot easier. And Parker is the guy that makes our job easier. Him, Justin Allgaier, Daniel Hemrick, those are the guys that help us in ways that they don't have to, but they truly do, and we appreciate them. So it was a little extra. It was a little extra disappointing there. What is not disappointing is the work that Steven Stumpf does on frontstretch.com. Steven, you're not going to be in Vegas, unfortunately. Myself and Dalton Hopkins will be there, but you will be providing some content on frontstretch.com. Promote your socials and then what you're going to be cooking up on Frontstretch, my friend.
Well, my only social, you can get directly on the screen for Twitter. I'm call it Twitter at Steven_Stumpf. That's Steven with V, not a V, like many people would otherwise say. But I've in the process of 3 columns now. I do stat sheet every Monday. I do weekend primer right before the start of the weekend, just covering all the news you need to know heading into it, as well as the my 4 burning questions, which I've written since the start of 2022. Just going into a bunch of post-race topics. I'm also working on a bunch of stat stuff. I posted some graphs about DQs today. I'm going to have even more charts and graphs coming in next couple days. Home stretch, exciting times. Let's get after it.
And listen, like, I don't read every single article on Frontstretch. I make sure to read the weekend prime article because it has every single thing you need to know, whether it's news, notes, times, point standings, info about the track, info about top 5s, top 10s. That has it for you. It's like a one sheet of everything you need to know leading up to the weekend. So check that out every single Friday night. Is that's right? Friday night?
It's a 10. Like for Bristol, when the truck race is Thursday, it was posted Wednesday night.
Gotcha.
Like Las Vegas, where Xfinity and Cup, it's going to be Friday night.
Gotcha. Okay, so Friday night, check that out, frontstretch.com. Big thanks to Trey Lyle for always supporting the program and producing this fantastic program. Big thanks to Steven Stumpf. Coming up next on the Front Stretch Podcast Network, because we got through the gears. All the latest betting odds. My man Tino has it for Sin City, and then Stock Car Scoop and Happy Hour every single Sunday and then Tuesday here on the Front Stretch Podcast Network. For Trey Lyle and everybody associated with Front Stretch, for Steven, I'm Bryan Nolen. Talking to you next week to recap Sin City and preview Homestead Miami.
What's up? Michael Massey here, frontstretch.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.